Now? Sarah, you too? You're good? Okay. Welcome to the Basalt Town Council meeting of November 22nd. Could we get a roll call, please, Pam?
At 6:02 p.m., yes. Rudy Bell?
Here.
Katie Schwer? Here. Autumn Schindler?
Here. Thank you.
Here. Mark Hill?
Here.
Jackie Whitsitt?
Here.
Gary Tannenbaum?
No, Gary. Where is Gary?
Thanksgiving. Is it Thanksgiving?
Okay, excellent. Okay, before we roll on the agenda, I want to thank Sarah and Grassroots for televising and playing our meetings over and over again for all the people who, I guess, would like to see them. Normally, we have Mayor's Coffee at Saxy's on Wednesday mornings following a regular meeting, but we have decided to cancel that because it seems like a lot of people are out of town. Yeah, so I think that's it. So the first item is the consent agenda. Is there anything that anybody has to say about the consent agenda, or is there a motion? Yes, ma'am.
So related to BPAC, if I have budgetary questions, I can wait. Is that the best thing to do? If I have, okay, so I'm gonna hold off on that then, therefore.
Yes, Jen.
I would like to comment that I'm very excited to welcome Pat Finch to Bach. He has much experience. He's a resident of Southside, and he is also an employee of APSHA, and he manages the Trescott project. And so it's quite the boon to Bach to have him involved, and I'm excited to invite him.
That sounds like a boonbach.
A boon Bach,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Anybody else have anything on the consent agenda, or is there a motion?
Just to point out that
Yes,
the
ma'am.
Bach appointments are, it's a plural, it's an appointment and a reappointment, they should get S appointments.
Okay, okay. Did you just want to whip through the names or anything like that? Okay.
Madam Mayor, I move the town council approve the consent agenda as published.
Second?
Okay, motion by Bernie, second by Katie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Council comments, reports, disclosures? Anybody? Anybody? I have a fun one. On Saturday, I attended the Citizens Police Academy graduation at the library, and it was, as so many things in Basalt are, truly awesome. It was a group of about 25 or 30 people, I guess, that was the whole class, and it was a great mix of Latinos and Anglos, and some of the class work is done separately, you know, for language reasons, and some of it, like gun range things, are done together, and you cannot imagine the power bonding that happened. It was a bring the food, what do you call that?
Potluck.
Thank you, potluck. It was a potluck, and it was a really nice ceremony, and the chief was, honored me by letting me participate in handing out the certificates. So all I can say is, if you want to make yourself happy, go to stuff like this, because it is really wonderful. And also, I'm going to go next year, and when does that start, and how's the sign-up go? Chief, could you just come up to the microphone just real quick, so I get this right?
Thank you for that. We do it in the fall of every year. So about midsummer, we start setting the dates, and we start doing the advertising around town. If anyone is interested in being notified about it next year, just get a hold of us at any time, and we have an ongoing list that we keep, and then we get a hold of people and let them know when the dates are.
Great. Yes, it's worthwhile. Okay.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
We're looking for 2 council volunteers to serve on the Roaring Fork Charity Classics Selection Committee. So if any of you are interested.
Auden, how do you like that idea?
Never happened, as much as I would love to.
Okay.
I can't do it.
Okay.
And you do know that you were appointed to the discretionary budget committee
While you were
while
gone.
you were gone.
This is
You
just
gotta
like an
clean
HOA.
bathrooms on Thursdays.
I don't mind that, that's easy.
Well, I would do it if nobody else would rather do it. 'cause
I'll
I'm
do
also-
it.
Okay, we got
Okay,
two.
great.
That's what you're looking for, right?
Exactly. The plan is to review the current process and have recommendations for change on December 13th, and then have a recommendation of a recommended beneficiary for your meeting on February 14th. So that's the process.
Thank you, Councilman Kittle and Grauer. That's
Thank you both.
appreciated. Yes, sir.
Before I disappeared for 2 weeks, I went on a ride-along with the police department, and it's a cool deal. Really, really fun. You get, basically, I sat there and asked questions for 2 hours. Hey, what's that? How's that? What's that? What happens if this happens? And it really gets you into the town, hanging out at 7-Eleven at 11:30, where we're not
I don't think
not
we
eating
say that.
donuts. But some of your employees were not eating healthily, I will report. But it was just a great thing, and it's an open, Greg has made that invitation to us, so I'd consider it.
Yep. I went on a ride-along last year. I got a half a block from my house with the police officer, and there was a wreck at the intersection, so I sat in the car at the intersection at a wreck. But still, it was fun. Anybody else have a last and final? Okay. Citizen comments for items that are not on the agenda. We are inviting any citizen out there who would like to have the ear of the council for a minute? Okay, hearing none.
Another tree lighting grass.
Okay. Okay, the next item is a public hearing. It's a public hearing on a new liquor license, Free Range Kitchen LLC, doing business as Free Range Kitchen and Wine Bar, 305 Gold Rivers Court. Pamela Schilling.
My applicants are not here yet. We anticipated it being 6:15. They are promising to be here, so if we wouldn't mind.
Go to the next one.
You know, the other thing I could do is, I forgot to say this, but there's no one here to say it to anyway, but we do have, we have adopted public meeting procedures that we are using, and basically, we're just asking people to limit their comments to 3 minutes, to be civil with each other, and when you speak, to say your name and address. Okay, so 6:15.
I'd be asked to say how excited I am that they're moving in.
Okay. That's it?
Yes, and well, I can say they're moving into the coupe space. It's been empty
Yes.
for a while. I figure I'm close enough. And it's really a very sort of landmark moment. I think that we have that space filled, and they're doing farm to table, and the liquor license obviously is important because they're also having wine tastings, so
Of course.
if that's helpful. And they've joined the chamber.
Of course, everybody does.
There you go, right away.
Yeah, Susan.
Well, if we're looking for announcements, I think everybody's pretty excited that Santa's gonna come to the tree lighting on December 2nd at Willits from 4 to 6, and December 9th at Lions Park, in combination kind of with the art walk, same time. And then on December 6th, right, Real America is having its groundbreaking over at the Real America Affordable Housing site at 2 o'clock. And then the menorah lighting is Christmas Eve at 4:30 outside here by the menorah, and they'll be using this building if they need to use the building at 4:30.
Thanks,
May
Susan.
I add to the 6th event, the ribbon cutting, that there's also refreshments at Stubby's and snacks, and it's a public event. So it's a big celebration, 56 affordable housing units, rental.
Great. Is that also anything to do with the Picken County folks? Because did we ever do anything for them?
You mean the groundbreaking?
Yeah, not a groundbreaking, but a ribbon
Oh,
cutting
no,
or,
but
oh,
yeah, we've been talking to them about having.
okay.
So in reference, Picken County's moved in, the Community Foundation, the Aspen Ski Company, and we're all looking to have open houses, welcomes when those
Great.
organizations have settled in.
Thank you, Robin. Okay, it's still not 6:15, so shall we go on to, is it 7? Yeah, 7A. which is a first reading of ordinance 31, an ordinance levying general property taxes for the year 2016 to help defray the costs of government for the town of Basalt for the 2017 budget year. Judy?
So this is part of our budget process, and in order for us to do our budget, which is the next item, we need to go through and levy our property taxes. And so, interesting enough, since the first time since I've been here, Pitkin County's valuations actually went down a tiny bit. You can see a little bump in, so we're at 5.8 in the general fund, and just a little over 5 in the bond fund, for a total of 11.613 total mills. And it's all broken out for you in, by fund, by Eagle and Pitkin counties, but that's the gist of it, is where the next step will be to certify our mills to both Eagle and Pitkin County.
Do you have any idea why Eagle went up and Picking went down?
Valuation?
But I mean, why?
I don't know.
That's a,
Yeah.
I know, it's kind of a guess, I suppose.
The Pitkin had been really high the previous cycle, and then they dropped them all, so that's part of
Okay,
it.
okay. Okay, so, this is not a public hearing or anything?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 31, series of 2016 on first reading, and set the public hearing and second reading for December 13th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is the one where we want to do a roll call?
After, yeah.
After?
Well, after they vote.
And I just have a quick question. Your third, whereas, the town of Basalt finds it is required to temporarily lower the general operating mill levy to render a refund of $1,376. Can you just explain that?
Well, we always want to use the word temporary, because then we can always adjust and go back up. But that was the refunding, about 1,200 of it came from Pitkin County, and a little tiny bit came from Eagle, and we always have to address that when we have any type of lowering of that.
Okay, and that just goes into our general fund?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, was there a second on this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so,
So I'll do a roll call vote
okay,
on this, if you don't mind. Ernie Grauer,
Aye.
Jenny Greenfield. Aye. Danny Witzik.
yes.
Katie Schwer.
Yes.
Tom Schiller.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Pam. The second one is first reading of ordinance 32, an ordinance appropriating sums of money to the various funds and spending agencies in the amounts and for the purposes set forth below for the town of Basalt for the 2017 budget year. Judy?
And so if this is your second step after we levy our taxes, first reading of our budget, and I have outlined, the expenditures in the general fund, bond fund, water fund, and conservation trust fund. We don't have any changes, other than the ones that we talked briefly about changing the daycare allocation, and, we changed a couple things out in the post fund, to allow for park improvements. So from our work sessions, these are the same numbers. Do you have anything to add, Ron?
Just got this balanced budget without using any reserves. So I think that's the key message that we'd like to give.
Yes. Thank you both for that.
Okay, is this also going to be a roll call? We just still need a motion and a second on this?
Yes.
And I have some questions.
Okay. You can do it before, after, whichever.
However you want to do it.
I'll move first. Mayor, I move that the town council approve ordinance number 32, series of 2016 on first reading and set the public hearing and second reading for December 13th, 2016.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, Bernie, motion, Mark seconded. And it's roll call.
And I have
Discussion.
questions.
All right, in discussion.
So I can.
Yes,
I'm gonna
ma'am.
go. Okay, so, one of my questions is related to BPAC. So in the past, I've noticed on our payables that we've had a consultant pop up between $1,100 and $1,500 a month. And I just, number one, is that general fund or is that restricted? Do you know off the top of your head?
We're gonna take it out, restricted fund.
Restricted, and it's coming out of the second.
It's coming out of the Service Matters, RETA. There's a Arts RETA, that applies for only a few of the townhomes, like the new ones that are being built in
Right.
Willits.
Okay.
And that's where we're taking the funds for BPAC from.
Okay, well, I guess, many of our other committees don't have a consultant, and that acts in the same capacity, so I just wonder, I mean, that could be up to $18,000 a year that we're paying a consultant to run a committee that meets maybe once a month for an hour.
Ron, do you want to take that one? Do you want me to start?
Well, you could go ahead. Susan and I have talked about that, and we've got a tentative plan to not only reduce the hourly rate of the consultant, but put a much lower cap annually for that firm. And so we've just had discussions about that.
Okay.
We could tell you where we are on that, or would you like us to tell you?
It's,
Please.
Well,
well,
why don't you tell her?
it's really the only committee that, that we have that we don't provide, any staffing in terms of the meetings, and we just really, we started that, just because of staff overload, as you know, the planning department just doesn't have, enough resources to take care of the business at hand.
Susan, could I just ask for you to,
Speak into
yes,
that.
we're all
Sorry.
trying to do better with our little notes and everything.
Sorry, I apologize about that. So we hired Michael Kinsley to work directly with the committee, and he's been doing that. And I did have some additional correspondence and emails with the chair of BPAC in terms of what did they need the consultant for. And she was pretty adamant that in this stage that they're in now, where they're actually working on the art installation, that they have someone that they've really brought along and educated them, and working with Tom Smith on the contracts, and really felt it was necessary at this time to continue. Ron and I spoke about the chair's concerns in terms of moving forward and being able to pull off the art installation, and we felt, I guess what kind of came out of the discussion that Ron and I had yesterday, that is to substantially rein in the role of the consultant, and maybe evaluate after the art installation happens. We did reduce the hourly rate that the consultant was using
Do you know from what to what?
from $100 to $75 an hour. And he hasn't been billing all the time that he's been spending. So, I mean, a lot of it honestly is just a matter of staff load. I know it's a sensitive thing. Ron and I talked about it yesterday, and really kind of came out of that of continuing, but at a substantially reduced,
And once the art
Portion.
installation is done, the expectation is that we no longer need a consultant.
you know, I don't know, I think we revisit it at that. I think that the committee itself will have to be doing some more work this year in terms of what other things that they want to work on. You know, we were thinking that some of it could be taken back on by staff, you know, when we have more staff here, that we could take it on more. And depending on what other functions that they have, it might change substantially.
Okay. Well, this brings up something that came up, I think, at the last budget review, and that is that we need to have a holistic view and understanding of all the different RITAs, and specifically what they're used for, their balances, who's doing what consultants are involved. So if we could get that in the near future, so we can start reining in some of these relatively expensive consultant fees that we're incurring, that would be very helpful.
And we did talk about that at the management staff meeting
Okay.
this week. And I think our target date is to get that information to you by the time we do our second reading.
Okay, great.
So we've been trying to get this part of the information put together, and then I will go through the restricted funds and give you guys a little worksheet on that.
Okay, that'd be great, thank you. And speaking of RITAs, I say it every time, but I'm gonna say it again. And that is, in the in the budget, we have to call, I know it's restricted at $82,500, which is allocated to a salary. And my comment is not related whatsoever in a personal manner or anything related to CAW. It is purely related to what I understand the RETA funds to be used for, and it explicitly states it's for an endowment and it's for sticks and bricks. And if we're not using funds as outlined in the RETA, I feel that that is an improper use of our tax dollars. And I will move forward with the budget, but I'm red flagging $82,500 because, again, I think it's an inappropriate use of tax dollars and doesn't follow through with the intention of the RETA. Which leads me to a question: when we actually move forward with the TACA 82,500, the feasibility study and the parking study, will that come to us? And
Yes.
we'll,
And you actually have to take action.
okay. Okay, so we can have more robust conversation about the 82,500 and the cost of the feasibility study and parking study in the future.
Yes, yes.
We're not, just because it's in here, we're not required to spend it, it's just a placeholder.
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
Can I
it is
just-
being
can-
spent.
Yeah.
It is being spent, and there is a executive director there overseeing their end of the organization. But it is budgeted up to that amount and will end basically, the ideal is we get the reports, we come before the council, the CA comes, and we have some big work session and work out where do we go from here. That's like a one-time thing which will end. It's where we go from here, that's up to the council.
And I think that this kind of circles back to how you presented this initially when you started speaking, which is just taking a look at the definitions and how the restricted funds came to be and how they're defined, rather than having to look at individual users, if you will. Let's get this straightened out once and for all of, is it sticks and bricks or is it more broad than that? We need to know this because then we don't have any more reason to have ruffled feathers or anything like that going on. So if we could ask for that sort of a conversation, that would be great. Go ahead, did you have more, Katie?
No, just as long as we continue the conversation, because it's something that I feel really strongly about, that it's not honoring the intention of the RETA, and that if for some reason TACA does not make a go of it, we don't have any funds left to make a go of it a second time around. And I don't think that that's fair to our community. So that's where I'll leave it. I guess we'll have further discussion in the near future.
Mayor,
Thanks, Katie. Anybody? Yeah. Yes.
I have a discussion point as well. Just regarding, I look forwards to the December 13th meeting and hearing more about the RETA funds and what their streams are, because circling back to BPAC, I'm trying to recall, when is, if we approve the selected movement, that's in my brain what I recall, the public art installation piece. When is that installation scheduled for?
June.
For June?
Mhm.
Okay. So I would like to propose at this time, and maybe before we get the December 13th, that we suggest an amount to cap the consultant fees for BPAC. And it seems that $500, $650 at the most would be a sufficient amount for that. And I would like us to have an agreed upon number before we go into finalizing the budget. So I'd just like to put that out there. And then that, I'd also like to show my support for Katie's standpoints on the various RETAs and clarifying the Willett's RETA as far as the definition and is it acceptable for salary. And when I read it, I see it as sticks and bricks as well. So I'd just like to show my support and unifying. Thanks.
Thank you.
Point of clarification, so
Yes.
do you want all restricted funds, or you want the history and the definitions on just so we have the first read-up, and then we have the second read-up? Is that more
Well,
specifically what you're looking for?
I think any of these where we're using them for various things, I mean, it seems like it's just Rita's to me, but you may come up with something else that we need to take a look at, because you see how they were authorized and you see how we're spending them. So if there's something else besides the two Ritas that you think that we need clarification on, I would say bring it to us.
Okay,
Yeah,
What about just saying restricted funds?
well, that's what I was gonna, that's what I'm.
'cause there's a lot.
Is all the
Yeah.
restricted funds, because they may not be in front of you today, but what I'm trying to put together is a little worksheet for you, so that if we wanna take money out of rent funds, that you guys have something that's usable, and you can say, oh, this is rent, this is how much we get, and this is what we can spend it for.
That would be great.
So that's work in progress.
Along with what the current balances are and what they're projected to, and then as well, if we can match what projects are matching with it. So for example, the public art piece, off the top of my head, I recall that it was around $65,000. But if we can get the consolidated cost for that to have in line with the entire, that would be fantastic and greatly appreciated.
Okay, is that good for now? On this one? Yeah, Susan.
Well, I just wanted to add kind of a clarification. I'll try to find out the status report of the feasibility study and how we want to move forward with that to report at that 13th meeting, too.
So I'm guessing that we are ready for the previous item that we skipped. Oh, we need a roll call on this one, okay. That's been out there for a while, hasn't it? Okay. Did we even get a motion on this one? Okay, all right, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to flip back over here to free-range kitchen, correct? Oh, okay. Well, thank you for coming. Would you like to come up to the desks, because we are, yeah, perfect. We're recording and it's also live, so if you could just, yeah, okay, all right. So this is Pam's. I will let her introduce this item.
So this is Stephen and Robin Humble, and they are gracing
Welcome.
us with their new restaurant, the Free Range Kitchen and Wine Bar over at 305 Gold Rivers Court, the previous location of Cuvée. Of course, this is going to be a public hearing on a new liquor license, a new hotel and restaurant liquor license. The restrictions on the applications for a new license are listed in your memo. There are no prior licenses that have been denied at this location or within 500 feet of this location in the past 2 years. The applicant has possession of the property for the term of the liquor license. There are no municipal zoning laws prohibiting the sale of alcohol at the applied for location. The building on the application is not located within 500 feet of any public or parochial school or the principal campus of any college, university, or seminary. Fingerprints and individual history records they are required in this case. I have that incorrect in my memo. And they were submitted to the state. And we have no concerns at this time that we're going to see anything out of the ordinary. Planning Department notes that the Free Range Kitchen and Wine Bar has not requested outdoor music, and therefore it is not included in the approval. If outdoor music is desired, it requires approval by the Planning Department. The Building Department has worked with the applicant, and I believe this has all been cleared up. You guys have been cleared by the Building Department as of, I believe, last Friday. And the police chief completed a records check, and internal records maintained by and accessible by the town of Basalt Police Department indicate no criminal violations. And this was on Mr. Humble, Mrs. Humble. Robin is, hers are still being checked. We got hers a little bit later than we did her husband's. Fire Department has responded as of today, and they have no concerns. They're working also with the applicant, Eagle County Health is also working with the applicant on their plan review. Is that coming along with them? Okay. And the clerk's office would recommend that the applicants provide proof of tips or responsible serving of alcohol for all their employees within the next 3 months. I understand they actually have a staff person who's going to be doing the training over there, which is excellent. That's all staff has to say. We turn it over to the applicants, Robin and Stephen, and see if they have any.
Yes, do you have any additional comments? I mean, I would just say for all of us, we're very excited for you, and that is an absolutely lovely space. I've always loved that over there.
We are in the middle of, I guess towards the end of, though it doesn't seem like it, a very extensive remodel too, which is exciting. We didn't realize when we got in there that there were 2 different color floors and a lot of different things going on in there. So we have invested quite a bit of money already, and it is just our project. We're not having it funded by anybody else. We're having the bank fund it with our house, a lien against our house, or, so it's just us. There's no other big force behind it. It's just us, having lived in the Valley and worked in the food and beverage industry in the Valley in some sort for 25 years.
Great.
I ran food and beverage at Roaring Fork Club. I was there for 16 years, so we feel like we're pretty tied into the community already, and
Right.
all we're really trying to do is give it our own, our own expression of what we want to do,
Oh.
which is really farm to table type food. We're really trying to focus on using local sources for everything where applicable, and create a great kind of farm to community restaurant. So.
Well, we're very
We
excited.
got a lot of the junk, like hormones and antibiotics, and I mean that's kind of our goal. And we believe we've found a chef that brings authenticity completely to that. He's started the Now, so he has some interesting high-end background, but he also has come a long way to. He worked a lot at the farmers market. His name's Flip Wise, if anybody recognizes the name, and he's worked. You did. Good. He's worked both at Rock Bottom Ranch and has resources. I mean, his resources in terms of local farms and even regional farms, because obviously in the winter we're not using a lot of local farm stuff. The Rock Bottom Ranch is one of his resources, and they do have some indoor wall plants. It's kind of cool, but so we're excited because we feel like our concept and the reason for it. I also went through breast cancer treatment last year. And so my reasoning for wanting to do this kind of food versus another explains itself. Just a lot of reading and learning about what's the real dangers to our society.
That's great.
So we're hoping to help bring that, without being preaching or preachy, bring some option of that sort without having to go to Whole Foods and, keep it reasonable too.
Right. Exactly. Well, this is a public hearing. Doesn't seem to be a lot of people here for the public hearing, but I will open the public hearing at 6:35. Is there anybody who has any comments regarding this application? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing at 6:35 and .5.
Mayor,
yes,
I
sir.
move that we approve the free-range hotel and restaurant liquor license for free-range kitchen.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mark, and tie goes to Katie for second. Further discussion?
Way to go. Thanks for doing
Yay.
it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We hope to see all of you and then some there. We have gotten a lot. I put my first post on Facebook. I'd never done it. I've done Facebook posts, but about the restaurant, and 200 or so people responded
That's
in
great.
some way or the other. And we feel like between the new businesses right next to us, above us, Ski Co., the community's desire to have another restaurant, this concept, and then the Roaring Fork Club members, once they land on us, we might, we might be able to actually do this and do it well.
Lunch too?
We will.
Well, the plan is to just do dinner this winter, because we really want to make sure we don't. I've been in too many food and beverage organizations that try and do everything and they mess up. So we're going to focus on dinner this winter, and then starting in the spring we will do lunch.
Good
and
idea.
dinner. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
It's also the season will, be a little more. That it just makes sense to us to do it in the spring, summer.
Well, thank you for coming in. I'm sure you're going to see our faces.
Perfect.
We
Good
hope
luck.
to,
Best
and
luck.
It's also a wine bar, so, and Steve, just so you know, is like very, his business really is wine, and so if
That wasn't missed by
thus,
us.
I'm not asking anybody for a reaction, or, but, you know, it's gonna have an emphasis on good food and good wine, so.
Okay. Are you open at all, like, to come look?
Sure.
You can peek in there. We're supposedly by the end of this weekend, the flooring will be done. A lot of the brickwork is done. We're doing a wood wall. We're doing some really fun stuff, but I would say probably the first week of December, it's really gonna start to look like it's going to look. We've got some beautiful lighting going in, and
Well, thank you again for coming in.
Perfect.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
Thanksgiving.
thank you, you too. Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, our next item is consideration of additional streamside improvements for the Pitkin County Whitewater Park. Susan.
So we're looking for a motion, or we're asking Pitkin County to make a specific improvement associated with the Whitewater Park. And we would be funding this out of our Parks, Open Space, and Trails funds, and we would be matching, for every dollar we spent, the county would be required to spend a dollar, up to our match would be a maximum of $25,000. And what the current situation is that there is as you know, there's construction going on with the Whitewater Park as we speak, and our approvals only would require a 4 to 5 foot trail along the bottom of the north bank of the river, closest to where the Columbines and villas are. And the recommendation is that to make an improvement where we build a small retaining wall out of stacked rocks and enlarge the path to 6 to 10 feet. Post is recommending this as an amenity for the recreational facility. We've checked in with Chief Knott, and it's going to greatly increase the access for safety for emergency management. So we'd like to go ahead and make the improvement. The equipment's in there now, and so that's why we're just recommending right now this improvement. There's other improvements that we're gonna be coming back and talking to you about, but the equipment is there, and once they leave, then they're gonna have to rework areas that they're working on right now, and it will cost more money. So we'd like to go ahead and make this motion now. They really want to do this work before our next council meeting, so that's why this was kind of a late addition to the agenda. Pitkin County's prepared to make the improvement. They've talked to their contractors, so if we do this motion, they're going to be moving ahead.
I have a question on this. When I was looking in the packet, I was looking for a little bit more user-friendly visual of what versus what, and that wasn't it.
Well, Hattie Johnson, it was coming to our meeting. She's from River Restoration, and she was going to bring some 11 by 17s, which we can share with you after the meeting. And sorry, by the time that we scanned it and then we reduced those files, and I realized that. But if you can just kind of visualize that you have a path at the bottom of the river, and it could slough off today because there's nothing retaining. And that's the real concern, that over time, the debris would come down and slough onto the path. And then they would build a retaining wall of 4 feet on the inside, closest to Two Rivers Road, and widen the path, and the path would be 6 to 10. So those different cross sections that you showed there just showed different cuts down the river, and where, how it's being widened, what it is today, and what it would be under the approval.
Yeah, I think we comprehend that it's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's stabilization and access, but these kind of visuals are horrible. Yeah, Jen.
So I attended the Pitkin County Rivers meetings, I believe that was this past spring. Yes, it was, and late winter, early spring. And I was recalling Pitkin County presented an option A, B, and C for various improvements along the riverbank there. And it seems that we're not, from what I gathered from the visuals, that it's not either option A, B, or C, it's only a path. And so I'd like some more clarification. If we're going to invest $25,000 up to matching for the walkway, what are Pitkin County's plans, and what is the partnership with the town of Basalt? First of all, and then second of all, in a timeline fashion, is there any discussion of any of the viewing areas? Or there was a talk of, one of the options was a rock retaining wall such as you're describing, but it was banked so that there could be seating, much like the Glenwood Whitewater Park. And that's why I just want to clarify what this money specifically is being spent for, and is this going to come back again in another 12 months for, we're gonna rework it and remake the whole thing, and you need to invest another matching grant of up to $60,000.
So, we've received two options from Pitkin County. Option one is an option that is just our town of Basalt requirements per our approval ordinance. And most of it's safety related in terms of building the corral along Two Rivers Road, the ramp of the access that the ATV vehicles can get into from Basalt Fire, the wrought iron stair going down the slope. And then there's an option two. Option two moves Two Rivers Road northward.
Oh, yay.
Oh, here's Hattie. Hattie, come on up, we're talking. So this is Hattie Johnson from River Restoration, and where we are, Hattie, is I'm just starting to talk about option one and option two. So maybe I'll do it in kind of planning lay terms, and then Hattie can kind of step in terms of a more.
Thank you for coming.
Well, sorry, I told her that what time I thought it was going to be, and
We're moving
Yeah.
along at
but
pre-holiday speed.
you don't have to hand that out yet. Why don't, yeah, so option one is just, here's the regulation. Option two is trying to get into a little bit more the amenities in the viewing area. So it moves Two Rivers Road north, and then it takes the bank of the river and regrades it. And it also has a different stairway down into the area, and it has a little bit different parallel parking configuration along Two Rivers Road. What we had programmed on your advanced agendas is that we would come back in January and present that to you and where we're at. We had a very productive, we've had a bunch of productive staff meetings. We've had a meeting with the Parks, Open Space, and Trails, and really where they were is that they didn't like the, there was an option two, there's a version where you're building quite a big viewing area as
Right.
you regrade the slope. And actually Post didn't prefer that option. What they preferred is that you take the stairway that's required for the fire department, and you widen that stairway and bring an option two. It kind of comes along the bank at an angle, but you create viewing areas along that area, and then they like the idea of keeping people down at the bottom, that people, men and women and children, would like to be down at the bank and watching what's going on, and that's why they really wanted it widened. What Jason would tell you is that if we're not gonna rework the bank of the slope, that doing this additional area, increasing it at the bottom is pretty important. I think what it really comes down to, also what it comes down to, one, Post didn't like the more elaborate plan, which required moving the road and regrading it.
Thus more expensive?
And it's more expensive, it's about $500,000 more. And so what Pitkin County was doing is saying they're gonna do option one, it's their responsibility. Option two was
So option, just to clarify, option one is a go, that's a definite, and,
they have, well,
and the funding, this is the funding to make that happen.
option one doesn't include this a wider trail. It includes 4 to 5 feet at the bottom.
Okay.
of the trail that they were afraid it was gonna slough down. Pickens County's budgeted, they're prepared to make those improvements. What we may do in January is we're working on kind of a tweak to option one. And I think that what we're very sensitive about is we don't have a lot of post money right now, and we have to make these safety improvements. And I think the chief is very adamant that the safety improvements are made before the Whitewater Park opens up. So he doesn't, the way we're looking at it is we don't want to wait another 6 months while we work through funding and everything else, because we really want to move forward. And Post was pretty happy with this idea of creating these landing areas instead of that larger area off the slope. And so that's what we were going to present in more detail in the January meeting. Now, we're trying to go over the difference in the cost. What Pickens County was looking at is on option 2, they were looking to more share the costs. And so, you know, we could be looking at, you know, $250,000.
Can I just interrupt, because, you know, this conversation's been happening for a long, long time about how this was gonna occur and how it was gonna be funded, and my memory, was anybody else around, was that it was mostly gonna be Pickens County's, project.
Option 1 is Pickens County's project.
Okay, so all these additional things are at whose BS?
Well, we're offering that this one, we would share the cost, I think, on the additional things that we may be talking about. It may be very much a different story.
Okay, and is this because it's the town's desire?
Yeah, it's coming from the town's request, right.
From Post Committee or?
Post committee, and then when we talked to the Chief Knott, he thought it was pretty important because one of the narrowest areas over where the proposed stairs are going to be.
Okay. Well, this would be, to me, this would be a great one to be having up as a PowerPoint or something and kind of spell out, here's the picture of option 1, and this is, it's Pickens County's budget, and here's option 2, and this is what it looks like, and this is Pickens County's part, and here's the town's part, just because that would be, I mean, it's definitely in here. It's just that if there was a room full of public here, they wouldn't have any idea what we were talking about, honestly. So, you know, just a suggestion for when visuals are really helpful. This would be, this would be one of them. But it sounds like it's funded and worked out and.
Not unless you approve it.
Yeah, we need to,
Right,
yeah.
so that's, I'd like to clarify, is it the town, is it town staff that's coming forward and saying, yes, we'd like to add the matching 25, or did Pickens County propose this? What's the?
This is coming from the Post Committee. Staff supports it.
Okay.
And Pickens County is supporting it too. They're prepared. That wasn't my impression. I mean, without a lot more work. I think the concern is that,
Right, it's
you know,
worth
we
a try.
could try, but we wouldn't want to hold up the work. I mean, we could put something else in the motion that we would like Pickens County to pay all of it if possible, and we're prepared to pay half if not. But we need to kind of authorize the work is kind of the issue.
I feel
Well, and I think just, if
yeah.
everybody could just ask for the floor, that would be great. But I think initially when we talked about this, we were talking about the fact that safety concerns, access concerns, all of that was gonna be, county projects. So, I mean, maybe everybody's okay with this, but I have questions about that, because that was my understanding, is these are not like, you know, bells and whistles, these are access and safety requirements, so somebody, anybody, what else?
Yes,
Go.
it's anticipatory. I feel a bit painted in the corner at this moment, and it would have been, I recognize that there's machines down there, there's giant boulders and a river diverted, and the water has broken and we need to make this decision. But I feel very painted in the corner with this ask, and it's something, I'm a whitewater enthusiast, and I am super psyched for the Whitewater Park. And safety is number one, and number two is how does it function, and are we committing up to $25,000 for a functional plan? And that's my big questions here. And number three, I'd really propose going back to Pitkin County and asking them to court us a little bit more on this.
I'd like to hear from, like, for instance, Mark Kittle about those. And everybody else.
Well, apparently, as the contractor was doing things over there, he realized that this trail wasn't gonna work unless we put that rock retaining wall in. It would slough off similar to the trail over here by my house that Gary in Pitkin County put in, I don't know, 8 years ago. They had to come back, and there was probably a crew there for a better part of 2 weeks fixing it because it sloughed off. So I think this is something that needs to be done, and I think we could probably, you know, go back to Pitkin County and ask them if they can't pony up all the money, but I really don't have opinion one way or another. It should have been figured out to begin with.
That was kind of how it sounded. Pardon?
I mean, as a boater myself, a 10-foot landing area is a lot better than 5 foot. A boat's more than 5 feet long. This question of are we being hot-boxed into making this $25,000 commitment, I think it's a legitimate question. Susan, if we don't decide right here, are we gonna lose the track hoe in the river and incur another 10 grand in cost?
Well, that was the idea, doing it now without a lot of, without having a super, waiting. If you want to ask Pitkin County if they could fund the entire thing, but we're prepared to match if they can't, I mean, maybe that works, but. we just
Presumably
don't-
that question was already asked. I mean, we wouldn't be
Yeah.
here if that hadn't been
Right,
discussed.
I mean, this just came up like last Wednesday, and we were scrambling to, move it forward without, losing ground and, quite honestly, not really having the bandwidth to make it a big project at this time. It seemed to be a really good request from the Parks, Open Space, and Trails Committee, and.
Okay, yeah, Tom.
I was just gonna say, what's the drop dead date for when they pull the equipment out of there? That's basically what you wanna know, right?
So, in today, and the way these kind of work, they set the upper structure today. They started to build like the in-channel features and are basically going to work down the bank starting next week, building kind of the sides of the structure in the channel, and then start that bank work downstream, either the 100 feet to the next structure once they set that. So they still have more, I think another week's worth of the in-channel, all of next week of just the whitewater feature itself, the stuff that's below the water, and then there'll be.
The question Tom would kind of have, at what point is it too late to say we make a contribution? Not, when are they gonna pull that machine out of there? Do we know?
No, not exactly. But it is.
But my understanding was it needed to be happening before the December 13th meeting, or we would have just waited for the December 13th meeting rather than add it at the final moments.
Well, I'm just gonna recap this, in my opinion, is that, this does feel like kind of a quick deal, and I do feel like back when Pitkin was here asking for this to happen, that there were every kind of promise made, commitment made to secure that with decent access and the safety measures that we needed. So I am uncomfortable with kind of a last minute deal, and I also believe this council is a different council, and we have regrouped on how we spend money. And we don't necessarily just say, okay, I'm sorry that you didn't make a plan that was adequate, or that we found something that we didn't like about it, but I don't feel comfortable going forward, and I feel like this is the county's project, and I would like to have them reconsider their ability to pay for these improvements, yeah.
Well, chances are they're gonna leave it the way it's drawn.
Which is arguably unsafe.
It sounds like it.
And
Yeah,
I'd like to
Jen.
just bring the numbers point up that in fiscal year 2017, our post funds available dropped below $1 million drastically. They dropped below $750,000. And an ask of up to $25,000, that's a hit to our parks, open space, and trails.
Okay. So here's what I would ask. Tell me if I'm going down this road by myself. I would ask that the county do these improvements, these additional improvements. And that based on, Bernie and I think even if Bernie was here, I'm not sure, around when this conversation first began, that there were commitments made that this would be done right. And it sounds like the way it's written up right now, drawn up, it's not adequate in a couple of different ways. So I would go back and say we feel like there's some obligation there, and give us the feedback, whatever you get. And if you feel like somebody from council needs to go on that chat, one of us will.
So can we, in whatever next step, motion, whatever we have to do, state our support of this? Because it seems that it's important that this
Yeah.
happens, but that we're seeking Picken County to fund it.
Let's put this in the form of a motion, what you're saying right now, so that
I'll
staff is
motion
clear.
Support for the suggested changes in light of in the need of bank stability and additional safety, and request that Picken County fully fund the cost for this improvement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thanks.
I'd like to have someone talk to Picken County about it, because I agree with Mark, it just won't be done, so.
Okay,
Hey,
Yeah.
just the
Yes, sir.
concern is that you end up without getting it. Like, I don't wanna, well, they say, no, we can't pay for it, we want this, and then we end up without it, and
well, it didn't sound like they were pulling out of the river tomorrow. Yeah, Tom?
Back up what Mark was saying, isn't it a little odd that the county wouldn't fund a safety improvement for this project? I don't know that it's so much safety as it'd be fine probably in the first year or two, but once it sloughs off, it's just an ongoing problem.
Right.
And who maintains it? I think that's an ongoing question.
They
Who's
have to
responsible
maintain
for,
But if we were dealing with a private contractor, we would say, hey, you can't turn over a bad project, can you? The
Yeah.
cat's out of the bag now. We're gonna be looking for it. So in my opinion, they need to fix it. Or we're gonna be looking for it down the road.
And Ron, talking to Picken County, if we hadn't just gone through this budget process and we're cutting every possible dollar, maybe we'd be like, okay, but to spend the money without real due diligence seems to not honor that process that you and Judy went through.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so, if you want a couple of us to go, or if,
Yeah.
however,
Yeah.
can I volunteer Mark and me?
I'll go.
All right, that would be good, because honestly, you have I think, a greater depth of understanding of
Give
this
away
issue.
with words, Mark.
And a way with words. All right, thanks. The next one is a resolution of the town related to the adjustment of, oh, I'm sorry, Bernard.
Can I jump in while we
Jump.
still were on post? I want to bring something up back to the budget process, and that is that Judy made up for us an analysis of 216 expenditures in the post fund. Everybody should have got that. And I look in the budget and I see the 217, and some of the items appear to be similar or the same, and like, this is a very big budget that I don't think we have a lot of oversight or input into. And looking at this $2.3 million of revenue, that's like tremendous. And I would like a meeting. Number one, I would like some more input as to what the post deliberations and plans are as they come up during the year. And I would like a briefing, either maybe not this year, but in the first quarter of next year, comparing and contrasting our history and what the current year plans for those post dollars are, to get some, council feedback and input going into that early in the year.
And maybe a way to begin that would be just a work session with Post too.
Yeah.
Just so we all are on the same page and, it's not us and them, because it isn't us and them.
No, but
They are
I
us.
still want
Yeah.
this budget versus what we spent compared and contrasted.
And I think it would be good for the Post members
Yeah.
to go through that with us as well. Good idea. Yeah. Okay, so, can we move on? Okay, the next one is.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bern. Thank you. Yeah. Resolution 46, a resolution of the town related to the adjustment of pay ranges. Judy.
So, this again, this is back to our 2 work sessions we had on the budget, and there's 2 pieces to this. The first piece is we adjust our pay ranges. If you remember, we hired Mountain States Employee Council to come in and reevaluate all of our job descriptions, and that was in 2013. And then they helped us put those into categories or grades, and we set those pay ranges, and we adjust that. So we use it's always in August. It's the first half of the year report that's published for the Denver, Boulder, Greeley, and then we use a 1.22 multiplier, and that is for the mountain resort, so that we can equal that out. And then, so that is just adjusting our pay ranges, and that these pay ranges are already reflected in all of our budget discussions.
Okay, is this, does this include cost of living and performance, or what does this number equate to?
2 parts, and it's cost of living and then the performance piece, and so certainly someone has to stay within their range, but this is just adjusting the pay range.
Okay, got it. Not the actual salaries.
2013,
Right.
we were so out of sync. with
Correct.
Where we needed to be.
Got it.
We continue to adjust every year.
Got it.
I would say,
Yes, Bernie?
I supported the current pay range increase. We know that our salaries are half of our budget and may continue to increase as we get our staffing levels from below where they probably should be to where they should be. And I just want, for myself, to say I am not committed to just doing this lockstep each and every year. I was reading in the paper, the state employees had not gotten an increase at all prior year, and they just got a 2.2% of pay increase. So I just don't want us to get so locked into a mechanism that we don't look at the overall cost and value and don't, massage that to some degree.
Well, let me just get some clarification, because it's been a long time since I worked in HR, but just adjusting the pay ranges doesn't necessarily move anybody's salary. It's just, because Bernie, even if you don't dole out the raises, you don't want to get behind in your ranges, so that when people are looking around, or, you're trying to manage your budget, you are way behind and you can't adjust like you should be able to.
Well, then maybe I misunderstood. I thought we were looking at a Denver-based rate, and then we were using a multiplier for the mountain, and then we were putting a substantial gross percentage on top of that, that is allocated by individual manager to employee.
My understanding is you set ranges and people can like be in the middle of the range and never move, you know, or be at the top of the range, or, you know, you don't have to apply it, but you need to have a timely pay range is, and maybe you can explain it better.
1%, so we only moved 1.2%. And so if we continue and we be consistent with what we use as an adjuster, and if you want to explore a different option, just as long as we stay consistent, because Greg can probably speak more, but what happened is we fell behind. And so in order to bring our officers up or to even have a chance to recruit, and it is so darn expensive, officers, it takes them at least 6 months, I would say, by the time they complete their training. And so for a while, we were just the people that hired and trained them, and then they went somewhere else. And so when we went in and we told Mountain State's Employee Council, we wanted to have them look at our specific jobs, and part of it is we wear so many hats. And so they went in and they said, okay, you know, you're 12% this or 15% that, and did a combined just for us. And then if we can be consistent, so last year we moved it by 1.2%. This year, if you read the whole entire report, it's really the housing market, which I think is pretty evident on this side, is pushing your cost, your consumer price index. And so if we be consistent and use the same multiplier, we shouldn't face what we did before, is where we were so out of sync that our ranges really were not reflecting our hiring ranges or where to be competitive of where we were at.
Are there others on council that feel like we need more information or maybe a work session on this to really
Well, and
understand?
Because we got this, is why I'm bringing it up. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that right now is necessarily when I need to go into it, but I think during the year, as we come on our budgetary process, which is only 6 months away, that is something where we
Yeah.
could spend more time.
I think so, because I think the HR deal is pretty complex, and all those adjustments and pay ranges and everything, I think it's something that we sort of skim over.
Yeah, we did,
Well,
but,
and it's one of the reasons we hired Mountain State's Employee
Yeah.
Council, because with the staff as small as we are, I didn't want somebody to come in and say, oh, you know, she really likes you, or she doesn't like me, or I didn't want that influence on there. So we got, her name, I don't know, and we could certainly ask her to come back over, but this is what she does. Her name was Candy Sedarius.
Yeah.
And she worked for Mountain State's Employee Council, and she reviewed every job description and worked through them with department heads to make sure they were matched with what people were really doing.
And maybe it would be a logical idea to have somebody like that come over and give us a brief presentation on how this all works and why we do it, basically.
Maybe it's a work session, we could get her over to visit with.
Katie?
So I understand the pay range shift. At the end of the memo, page 1, it says amount requested 70,337. Can you just explain that?
So when you went through your budget, and we had the work session and we had it broke down,
Yep.
the net change is about $70,000. And what I used was an average of, what we thought the employees would be, and so, and more than the people were. So about $70,000 was your net change.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And
Yeah,
can you
Jen?
clarify, Judy, was this amount requested, does that reflect in the 2017 budget?
It is there, yes.
Okay. And then I'd love to hear Ron, put you on the spot, what's your reflection on having worked with other municipalities?
Well, I could talk about this municipality. We're in the process of hiring people, and we find that we're not as competitive as we thought we were. And so it's a challenge to hire high-quality people. And in direct response to your question, I think this is typical, that this is about a 5% total, right? So typically, most communities have a cost of living adjustment. You still have to earn it and be an acceptable performing employee. plus a percentage, which is relatively small, for merit increases. So I think this is in alignment with most communities.
Thanks for the reflection.
Thank you.
What? Your phone and my phone are. Okay,
I would say, I think these are great questions and good due diligence, but I'm inclined to pass this now, but to Bernie's point, revisit in some more detail in the budget process.
is that a motion?
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, Auden and Mark, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, guys. Okay, 9B is a resolution of the town adopting amendments to the town's records retention policy as previously adopted by Resolution 11. Tom?
As the council is well aware, we've been inundated with Open Records Act requests in the past year that include requests for emails and text messages. We've had issues raised about emails and text messages constituting meetings in certain circumstances, and we also have previously adopted the Colorado Municipal Records Retention Policy, and all three of those come into play in connection with the policy that is in front of you tonight for review. This is intended as guidance. It doesn't change the current records retention policy that we have, but it's for the purpose of providing guidance to kind of fill the gaps, fill in the blanks around the records retention policy because of some of the vagueness that's in it. If you look at the first page of the proposed policy, there are three categories of correspondence identified in the current records retention policy, which is in effect statewide, as they apply to emails and text messages and other forms of communication. And they are enduring long-term value, routine value, and transitory value. And it is often very difficult to distinguish between those three categories. And so this policy is intended in part to try to put some meat on the bones, if you will, in terms of making that distinction. It also addresses issues regarding the distinction between business correspondence and personal correspondence, and identifies the different requirements that apply to those two. It addresses distinctions that are based upon whether there's a personally owned device in which the information exists, or a computer provided by the town. In the latter case, the town can request that the device be turned over for determination of public records or locating public records that may be subject to an Open Records Act request. And finally, it identifies the different rules that apply generally to the retention of text messages and emails, as opposed to when an Open Records Act request has been made. The three categories of correspondence that I referred to are applicable in general to the determination of whether something needs to be retained or not, but once a core request has been made, all bets are off and everything needs to be held until the request is disposed of. One of the reasons for this policy is to address text messages as a different form of communication than emails, in large part because of the difficulty that can occur in retrieving text messages as opposed to emails and other forms of correspondence. We found out in the course of litigation that when we attempted to locate text messages through the service provider, that they are discarded in a very short period of time. So if you don't have them on your device, then they can't be produced, and that can, depending upon the content, be an issue. Emails and normal, regular written correspondence, hard copy correspondence, you obviously don't present the same problems because they are retained for substantial periods of times, and even if you don't have them on your device, there are ways of retrieving them through servers. So this policy is intended to clarify to some extent the issues surrounding text messages and emails in terms of retention and in the various categories. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to answer all the questions, but it's an effort to try to improve the situation. The bottom line with text messages is that the policy states that texting is discouraged and should be limited only to matters that are transitory in nature. Can we have a meeting? Are you available for something or other? Please send a public works person out to such and such a location to check something out. Anything that is of a more significant nature should not be the subject of text messaging because of the problems of retrieving them if and when they're needed to be found. If the matter at issue is of something of enduring long-term value, such as a discussion of policy or rules changes or major budgetary issues, those need to be retained indefinitely, and if they're in text message form, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to do that. Matters in the middle category of routine value have some significance, but they are in sort of a gray area where they don't have permanent value in terms of long-term town policy or rules or regulations or other decisions, but they also are important enough that they're something that you shouldn't throw away right away because they're not just sort of routine, or I shouldn't say routine because that's the category. They're not of such transitory value that you ought to get rid of them right away. So there are examples given of the various categories in here that hopefully will be of some help. In the end, you need to do your best, and I'm always available for discussion in the event of any questions or uncertainty about the retention of certain records. But if there's a major message in here, it's to reduce text messaging as much as possible and to be cognizant of the different categories for purposes of retaining electronic communications in order to comply with records retention requirements, but also to make it easier for us to respond to Open Records Act requests. So with that, unless you have questions, now you don't have to deal with this tonight. If you choose, if you want to spend more time with this, that's fine. It's been sort of on the back burner for a while. We've had it at a staff level for a number of months now. It's been there for, but hasn't reached your agenda. This is the first time you've seen it, so if you're not comfortable approving it right away, I understand that, and we can come back and after you've had a chance to study it or develop some questions if you have about it. But here it is, and if you're ready, you can go ahead with it. Again, this is policy guidance. It doesn't have the force and effect of a law. It's intended to be interpretive to help in applying the law. So it's in that spirit that we put it out there, and I think it will be helpful for members of the public also to know that we have this policy and that we're not ignoring the difficult issues that surround emails and text messages, particularly as related to Open Records Act issues.
First, I want to thank Tom for doing this. I feel like we could have all benefited had this been brought to us back when Tom was working on it initially. Like he said, it's been months, and in the meantime, you know, some of us have made mistakes that we didn't need to make because we didn't have a policy in front of us and we didn't have consistent procedures that we were all following. So I appreciate it, Tom. I, for one, I kind of pushed it onto this agenda. You know, staff, I think, thought we might have more business tonight than would leave time for this, but it's been way long enough waiting for this, and I think it's solid and it's thorough, and I really appreciate it. Questions?
Let's pass
Um,
it, and if we find things
exactly.
we wanna tweak later, we'll tweak them.
You could, you're free
I'm
to
with
do
you.
that, absolutely.
Jennifer?
I have one question, and that is that there's no time frame on the retention in here. Are we,
Yeah, that stays the same, and it's on the first page.
oh, okay,
So those are the timeframes that are specified in the state of Colorado municipal record retention policy that they propose
okay.
for every municipality in the state to consider adopting. And we did adopt it, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago, Pam? Something like that? And we're not, that's why I say this is interpretive and not a change in the rules, because the 3 time periods are either permanent for enduring long-term value, 2 years for routine value, and read and discard for transitory communications. And that doesn't change.
Anybody else?
Mayor, I move that the town council approve resolution number 47, series of 2016.
Second.
Okay, Auden, Mark, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent, thank you again. Okay, let's see, information, any questions on the information that's included in this packet?
Did you want to point out the notice of the Upper Bryan Pan Vegetation Project meeting? That's
Sure.
it's item 10C.
Oh, okay. We have in our packet a notice of Upper Frying Pan Vegetation Project meeting Monday, November 28th. And it looks like it is, where is it?
Here at Town Hall.
Oh, it is here at Town Hall, okay. Let's see. Does anybody want to say briefly, more specifically what that is? Susan?
You know, I don't, but this really came out of a citizen request that the meeting was held in Carbondale and wanted to have a meeting here at Town Hall. We have received some draft comments from Pitkin County about responding, and we, you know, depending on what we hear on Monday night, we may submit some staff comments to go along with it. The comment period ends like the first week of December.
Okay, well, I will say that I have heard enough about this to want to be sure that the public is aware of it, because this is probably going to impact the community of Basalt far more than Carbondale, and yet that's where the hearing was in Carbondale. So it is again on the 28th, 6 o'clock, Basalt Town Hall. Please come if you can.
And from a council
Yes.
standpoint, I'd like to add to that. I would love to hear from Boyd or Public Works or Judy what the impact is on the town of Basalt on our streets with the proposed however many thousands of semi-truckloads that will be going through.
Our next item is an executive session. It's a conference with our attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions in accordance with CRS 246402, specifically the consulting contract between Mike Scanlon and Woody Ventures. Do you have anything more?
Before you have a motion.
Yeah.
We should get Steve Dawes on the line because
Okay.
he's counseled to,
We are not in executive session yet, if you want to stay.
the vote hasn't been taken.
Right.
If there's.
If you want to stay and hear what Steve
Mayor
Dawes
may
has
not
to
want to
say.
have some discussion with Steve Dawes before you decide to make a motion and vote.
Sure.
So we'll get him on the line now and proceed from there.
Are we going to have any comments after the executive session? Because I need to know if Sarah needs to stay, and we need to restart our equipment.
I don't think we know.
We don't know
Okay,
until
Sarah,
we,
can you stay for a little bit?
can Sarah have some pizza?
Yes, Sarah's had.
Okay. Yeah, Ron.
Your Honor, I will respectfully be recusing myself from this particular executive session.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is Steve.
Hi, Steve. This is Jackie Whitsitt, Basalt Town Council, Basalt, Colorado. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good.
Can you guys hear him?
I can hear him. Can you say a couple of words, Steve, so everybody can sound test you? Do you need to put a microphone over here?
Be a sound check, Steve.
Okay, we are not in executive session, but we are discussing going into an executive session, but,
I need you to stop for just a moment.
Okay.
And make sure that we are getting our sound. I apologize, but we need to get these recorded.
Can you hear me well?
I need your sound, I need the sound. Okay.
is it Sarah's sound we're looking for?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yes, everybody can hear you.
Okay.
So we were just discussing the potential of going to executive session regarding the consulting contract between Mike Scanlon and Woody Ventures. And I understood you had a conversation with one or more of the council people, and so I guess we just want to hear a little bit about why we would or would not want to have this executive session.
Can you repeat that? There was a extraneous noise and it made it very difficult to hear.
Yes, we would like to hear your counsel regarding why we should or should not have an executive session regarding this matter. In your opinion, what are the merits or the reasons why we would have an executive session?
Yes, I think you should have an executive session because it involves my giving you legal advice that's confidential and could affect incipient litigation and pending matters involving Mr. Scanlon.
Okay, council members, you have questions for Mr. Dawes? Okay, well, then I guess we will go ahead and have our motion to go into executive session. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Bernie motioned, Katie seconded. Further discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are in executive session.
Steve?
Do you want us to have a motion to come out of executive session on tape, Pam?
Yes, please.
Okay, could we have a motion to come out?
I move to come out of executive
I
session.
second.
Okay, Jen and Bernie, all in favor? Aye. We are now back in regular session at 8-ish. So,
Okay, so what happened in executive session in our continuing efforts at transparency? We instructed our legal.
Need to vote on that. He's getting to that.
Wait, what are we talking? We need to vote.
This is his introduction.
it's his introduction.
No, you want me to make a motion? Okay. The council makes a motion to instruct legal counsel to inform Mike Scanlon that his employment with Woody Creek Ventures may or may not constitute a violation of town ethics rules per his contract, and we don't waive our right to recognize that.
Second.
Clarification, is it Woody Creek Ventures or Woody Ventures?
Woody Ventures, not Creek.
It is Woody.
Corrected, Woody Ventures, thank you.
Okay. Is there any other discussion about this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody.
Motion to
We are adjourned.
Second, third.
Thirded.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.